How awesome would it be to live your entire life and never have any regrets? I know a lot of people say, I have no regrets in life, but how true does that really ring when it comes to your comic book collections? We're all creatures of habit, so I know that there are books out there that we wished we would have bought that we didn't, that we sold that we wished we hadn't. Well, my buddy Steve over at Birch Family 54 Comics wanted to have me do a video like he did where I talk about books I regret selling in the past. So I'm not going to run down a certain order or a certain number. I think there's like 9 or 10 here, but these are some books that I regret selling that I had in my collection before. Now, I'm going to start out with Amazing Adventures 11 through 13. Now, this is the first appearance of the Beast with fur, the first gray Beast, and this is the first, second, and third appearance. I had all 3 of these issues. These were books that I really wanted at one point, and I was really excited to be able to grab them. However, when it came time for me to get my Turtles #1 last year, I had to make some sacrifices, and these 3 books ended up being part of the sacrifices that were made in order to obtain that Turtles #1. Now, are these books that I could grab again? Sure, they've went up a lot since what I paid for mine, so I'm not sure that I would actually go out and spend the money for them. But if I were to come across them at a good deal, something that I felt like was something that I would be willing to pay for it, absolutely I would grab all 3 of those back. Another book that I regret getting rid of, this wasn't a book necessarily that I sold, but Batman 423. I actually traded this book with a Batman Killing Joke. I believe it was like a 9.6 or a 9.4. I traded both of those to Nick for the Killing Joke 9.8 behind me. Now, I'm really happy that I have the 9.8 Killing Joke, but at the same time, I really hate that I don't have that Batman 423 anymore because I was so excited when I grabbed it. I got a great deal on it. First print, like 20 bucks. Obviously, we know what that book has done recently. It has just flown through the sky in prices, so it's not one that I'm looking to purchase anytime soon. I have a hard time paying over 100 to 200 bucks for a book that was less than $50 for a really nice copy a year ago. I know that's what the market dictates and blah, 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 and all that good stuff, whatever. I don't care. I'm not going to pay the price for it whenever, I know what I paid for one last year just because the world has lost their minds. So that's one that I do regret selling or trading off, and I don't intend to pick that one back up anytime soon unless I'm able to find it for somewhere around that $30 to $50 range, which I know is pipe dream, so probably going to count that one out. Submariner 5 is another one that I had to let go. Not necessarily did I have to let it go, but I chose to use this one as a sacrificial lamb as well in order to obtain that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles issue #1 last year. This was a book that last summer I sought out. I was after that book very hard, even more than the Submariner #1. I wanted that Submariner #5 because I'm a villains guy. I think villains are much more interesting. I feel like there's so many more stories you can tell with the villains. So I don't know, I gravitate towards them. And Tiger Shark was just an awesome looking character I didn't know much about, and I still don't know a ton about him, but I love the design of the character, and I really love that cover on his first appearance of Submariner 5. So would love to have that one back. Definitely regret not having that in the collection anymore. Cap 109, Captain America 109, the origin story issue, and this is the first time we get the origin story in Captain America's first self-titled Marvel series. I hope I said that correctly. I believe I did. I had this book as well, bought it last summer. I thought it was a bit higher grade than it came back from CGC, so I was kind of disappointed with that, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to sell this copy, and I'm going to grab another one higher grade because it's not a very expensive book. And I believe what I actually ended up doing was I traded it to Josh over at Haven Comics with a little bit of cash on top to get the Green Ranger Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 0 9.8 behind me. So it ended up being a really good deal for me. I was very happy with the deal. However, I do regret not having that book in my collection in some capacity, because it has went up as well. But at the same time, I'm happy with the trade I got for it. With a little bit of cash on top. At the time, that book was worth way more than the Captain America 109 in the grade that it was. So will that one come back down? Will I be able to grab it? I'm sure at some point I'm going to grab another copy. And who knows, I may end up with the same grade or less now because of the prices. So maybe I didn't make a good decision there. Fantastic Four issue 112 is one that I really hate not having in the collection anymore. I just think the history between the Thing and the Hulk is just two big giant bruisers, and you know it's such a cool thing that they were able to 100 issues after their first fight. Here they are again, fighting again. Basically the 100th anniversary of the meeting of these two. So it's a really, really cool book. I definitely would love to have that one back at some point. Now, this is the only time you're going to see a Spider-Man book on my list probably, but Amazing Spider-Man issue 300. Now, you guys know, not more than probably a month or two ago, I can't remember if it's been quite 2 months, but I purchased Amazing Spider-Man issue 300 in a newsstand 7.5. I put it in a video where I talked about books that I purchased to invest in, things that I picked 3 or 4 books that I thought were worth investing in now that I could hold on to for several years and probably see a nice return on. Now, this Amazing Spider-Man 300 was a book that I noticed from talking to my shop where I purchased it. It was just really dirty. As far as being a 7.5, that was the only reason we could see that it was that low. So with a nice, good cleaning, it was definitely something that could probably bump up to an 8.5 or better when you resend it, and that automatically would bring a great return on that book on top of holding it for a few years. But with recently me having to switch jobs and purchase a new vehicle, that was a book that I needed to let go of because it was either let go of that book that I really had no emotional attachments to at all, could care less if it was in the collection at this point, or let go of something that I really wanted to keep, something I really loved. So I made the decision to choose things I loved over things that I'm investing in and trying to get some return on later on down the road. So I had to let that one go. Now, that specific one, I just hate that I wasn't able to actually get it cleaned, pressed, and submitted and get it back from CGC before I had to let it go. I wished I could have done all that beforehand. However, it just didn't work out that way. So I put it on the list because I do regret not being able to get it sent off and get it cleaned and at least bumped a grade before I sold it. Because really, I didn't make any money on it even when I did sell it. I basically sold it for exactly what I paid for it. So, at least I got my money back out of it, I guess. And that's a good thing, I guess. Uncanny X-Men 266. Now, I do have my 9.8 back here on the wall behind me, but a 9.6 that I purchased. Same video, same deal with the ASM 300. It was a book I got a great deal on. Thank you, Josh at Haven Comics. And I plan on holding that until we saw an X-Men movie, until we saw Gambit. And I was hoping that that book would fly up and I'd make a little bit of profit on that one later on down the road as well. But again, I had to make the decision, do I sell this book that I don't really need, something that I care less about than the things behind me, or do I hold on to it, sell something that I really don't want to in order to gamble and hope later on I'm going to pay off? Well, I chose love over greed, and I had to let the 266 go in order to fund picking up the truck that I had to purchase for my new job. The good thing is it did go to a good friend of mine, Justin Birch. He picked it up, and brother, I appreciate that so much again. Although I hated seeing it go, I was at least glad it was going to you because, hey, fellow X-Men lover, it's always good to see it go to a good home. Now these last two are absolute heartbreakers. Oh my gosh. These two books here, letting these two go and not having them, these are the biggest regrets, bar none, in my collection life. There's no comparison. We're going to start out with New Mutants 98. New Mutants 98. I'm not going to explain how, but I ended up with a New Mutants 98 for free. For free, okay? The real deal, not the facsimile. And it was probably an 8.5 copy maybe a little better, maybe a 9.0, I don't know. But it was a raw copy. If you go back and look at some of our older videos, you'll see when we first started, I always had that New Mutants 98 in my setup. It was always on display. first appearance of Deadpool. Now we know that book has skyrocketed. Even lately, it's gotten way, way, way more expensive. I had a raw copy, and I really just was like, man, I want to hold onto this book and use it for trade bait. That was my whole intentions with this book. I didn't care to sell it and make money on it, but I wanted to use it to trade for something that I did want. Well, last year I got on a huge Silver Age Submariner kick. I mean, I don't know what got into me. It had nothing to do with spec or anything like that, but I was just on a huge Silver Age Submariner kick. I picked up one, I think I had 1 through 6, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to pick up like the first 30 issues of Silver Age Submariners, Marvel's Submariner run. I'm going to pick up the first 30 issues of it. Some great covers in there. And that cover art really got me in trouble because there was a Facebook auction where a guy was selling a ton of Silver Age Submariner, and I claimed a bunch of them, and I talked to him afterwards, and I said, hey man, I think my bill is at like $150 with you. How do you feel about making a trade? And he said, what do you have? And I threw out the New Mutants 98. He jumped all over it, as he should have. I sent him pictures. He was all good with it. At the time, New Mutants 98, the raw copies were not going for much more than what $150 to $175 in that grade. It did have a couple spine ticks, so it wasn't a near mint copy. So $150 to $175, that was like I was getting top dollar for that book in trade, and I got all those Submariner books. Now, the bad thing about this whole thing is I have a box somewhere with all those Silver Age Submariners, except for a couple, and a bunch of X-Men stuff, and I cannot find them anywhere. Have not been able to find them for a long time, probably almost a year now. I've redone my entire room, and obviously I did not find them there. I've been through all my boxes and resorted, didn't find them in there, so all those books are gone. I don't know what happened to them. So, I mean, I've got my Submariner 1, I've got my number 6, I think I've got one more issue. It's I think it's an issue with like a boat with a pirate looking ship or something on it. So I only have like 3 issues total out of all the Submariner stuff I bought last year, and I'm pretty sure all the ones that I got from that guy for the New Mutants 98, every one of those are missing now. Don't know where they're at. So basically, I gave away the New Mutants 98, and I don't have anything to show for it now. That's a big time regret, but nothing comes close to my very last one. This is the one that hurts me the very most because I know I will never ever get this book again because I'm not paying the prices that it cost to obtain this book. And that is Ultimate Fallout, issue number 4, the first printing. Now, I've spoke many times about the fact that I don't really relate very much to Peter Parker, so the character's never interested me. But Miles Morales is definitely a character that I dig. I think that the movie was fantastic. That was my first introduction to Miles Morales because obviously I watched that before I even started collecting comic books. I thought that the character was awesome. I really dig his venom attacks. I love the suit. Everything about it is just super cool, man. It's just way, way cool. You know, I mean, Miles is just a cool cat. Peter, kind of nerdy. Miles is he's cool, man. So, with that being said, I wanted to have the first appearance of Miles Morales, Ultimate Fallout issue number 4. I got a near mint copy, I would say last winter. Not this past year, but I guess somewhere between 2019 and the very beginning of 2020, I obtained a copy for $75. Still in the poly bag. Guys, real quick, if you have that book and you are keeping it in the poly bag because you think that's going to make it worth more money, please do yourself a favor. Take it out of the poly bags. Do not keep that book in the poly bag. I'm telling you right now, it hurts the books badly. That will take your book from being a 9.8 to being a 9.6. You don't believe me? Ask Skepp's Comic Knowledge. I'm sure he's seen it a million times. What it does is it draws a seam right down the middle of the book, and you might not even see it. You'll send it in, you'll get an 8.5. You know why? Because you got an 8-inch seam right up the back of the book. Take them out of the poly bags and save your comic book. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming here. I picked it up for 75 bucks, still in the poly bag. I was so excited. I grabbed my first appearance of Miles Morales. I was very, very happy about this. Now, at that time, a 9.8 was going for around $300. Now, this was pre-Dustin buying all the Silver Age books he purchased last year. So this was probably the most expensive book I had purchased to date, with the exception of actually the Raw Uncanny X-Men 266. I paid $90 for that. Ended up being a 9.8, so not a bad deal. But 75 bucks was a lot of money for a comic book for me at the time. I had it pressed, I had it clean, and you'll see it in my setup in our earlier videos as well. Beautiful, beautiful copy of this book. I mean, it was perfect. And I had it every intention of sending it to CGC. Now, I don't know exactly the details. I can't quite remember what it was, but something happened where I got in kind of like some kind of situation where I needed like 150 bucks that day. I had to have it. There was nothing I could do about it. Had to have it, and I didn't have it on me at the time. So I had to look at the comic books, and I said, all right, what can I sell that I know I can make that money in one day, no doubt, but if I want to, I could probably go purchase again in a month whenever I can, or a couple weeks whenever I can. I can just go grab another copy for the same price, or just a little bit more maybe, but like I don't have to worry about it like going crazy. So I looked at the Ultimate Fallout 4 and I decided, you know what? They just released the animated movie not too long ago. I highly doubt there's going to be a Miles Morales movie anytime soon. So I think this is a fair chance that I can definitely move it for the price that I need, and I can grab another copy with no problem because it was so heavily printed. It's not a low printed book. There's millions of these things out there, it seems like. So I just figured, you know what, that's one I could, because you know, even though I didn't want to let it go at that time, I didn't have many expensive books at all. I really didn't. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to do this one. So I put the book up on our Instagram, and I actually did a waffle. And it actually took 2 days, guys. 2 days. I think I did 10 spots at $12 a spot. You could have had a first print Miles Morales first appearance for $120 if you bought all the spots. Somebody won it for $12 last year, though. And it took 2 days. Think about how crazy that sounds right now. I sold that book. I shipped it out. I think 3 days later, literally 3 days later, Sony announces the Miles Morales Spider-Man game. And that book has shot up, and we have not seen it even think about coming back down ever since. So that is definitely the biggest regret I have when it comes to books that I have sold or let go with my comic book collecting. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please drop me a comment. Let me know which one of these do you think was the biggest screw up on my part by letting go. What is some of the things you regret letting go in your comic book collection? I'd love to hear you guys' comment. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. And as always, collect your way.